a look at Trevor Lawrence and where he fits into this Jaguars inventory I've done this week. We'll do it here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for joining me, Tony Wiggins, your host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, your daily Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. Today's episode of Locked On Jaguars is sponsored by SimpliSafe Home Security with Fast Protect technology, exclusively from SimpliSafe. 24/7 monitoring agents capture evidence to accurately verify a threat for faster police response. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Visit simplisafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. I'm glad you're safe here with us here on Locked On Jaguars, as we've done we've taken some inventory all week since it's the bye week, and we've gone through every single part of the roster, telling you what the Jaguars have, what we want to see the next 7 weeks as we head into the end of the year and get ready for the off season. We just want the promise, man. We want to be pregnant with possibility that the Jaguars will eventually birth themselves into being a good football team. So today we culminate all of that with a look at the most important part of that scenario, the most important part of that future, and that is quarterback Trevor Lawrence. We'll use the first and second segments to talk about him, his development, where I think he is, where I think he potentially could be. And then in the third segment, we'll tie it all together and talk about some things that they really, really need to do in these next 7 weeks. A tough game coming out of this bye, man, with Baltimore. Baltimore might be the best team in the NFL. And we know that Lamar Jackson is a handful. Could have been a Jaguar, but that's neither here nor there. We know he's going to be a handful. So, expecting the results, like we talk about in segment 3, expecting these results to be anything other than, what you realistically should be thinking might be a bit of a reach and a stretch. But let's get to Trevor Lawrence. If you look back at our history of podcasts, I did a podcast not long ago that I said that Trevor was not elite and he was not playing in an elite fashion. When you look at him, you have to really separate talent and athleticism from the mental part of being a quarterback. And I do believe that when folks talk about whether or not he's elite and whether or not he is generational, there's a difference, I believe, when you talk about elite as a talent and as a generational quarterback. For instance, nobody ever said Tom Brady was elite physically. I think he got a little bit of a bad rap because I think his arm is better than we all thought it was. But Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick, but it turns out he was generational. So you don't necessarily have to have. Drew Brees was a generational quarterback and didn't have this great physical talent. So I do think that there's a huge difference when we have been having this conversation about Trevor. And I'm setting all of this up because you could look at him right now and think that he's been a bit of a disappointment. But I tell you, you probably have the wrong key that you're grading this with. Those little bubble things when you probably got the wrong one. And it looked like all the answers are wrong because, well, you got the wrong answer sheet. Thinking that his story has been told already is a mistake. He's 1.5 years into his career. At this point, Josh Allen was horrible. At this point, Patrick Mahomes had only played about a half a season. And those are the people that he keeps being measured against. When you look at Justin Herbert, see, I think what folks do is everybody I just mentioned has this incredible arm talent, right? And because of that arm talent, they're thought of in a certain light. Joe Burrow doesn't have that arm talent that those three guys have, but what he does have is he has a knack and a calm, cool, he is very Joe Montana like. He has a calm, cool way of just getting the job done. And we sit here and we go, that's what it looks like. So he's a generational type quarterback without having the elite talent. So with Trevor Lawrence, I think sometimes when we have had that discussion, when I did the podcast and I said he wasn't elite, I wasn't talking about his physical skills. I was talking about the fact that he was showing a propensity to make mistakes, critical mistakes that cost the team games. And I think what bothered me about it a little bit was the laissez-faire or vanilla or cookie cutter answers for those mistakes that we were getting. It's like, I have to do better. I have to do better. I have to do better. That whole pointing at yourself thing, I told you, it drives me absolutely crazy, because saying that it's on you when everybody and their grandmama knows it's on you, at some point it gets nerve-wracking, right? So I started to question a little bit of the hunger and the desire. And luckily for me and luckily for you as Jaguar fans, something changed over the last couple of weeks. This kid has been on fire. He has, in my opinion, played a little bit less hero ball. He has taken what has been given him. I even saw him the other day on the touchdown that he threw that got called back. He turned when he realized the penalty was on Cam Robinson, and you saw him demonstratively holding his hands out like, what are you doing? It takes some of that. Sometimes you have to be the leader. You have to be the leader. Now, I did get wind also that a few weeks back after Trevor playing poorly, that some veterans got up in his face and told him, man, you need to play better. And I heard it kind of had to be pulled away from him a little bit. Like, you need to get your crap together, bro. And I do think it was out of frustration, but I also believe that it was bigger and more than that. I think it was just them saying, look, dude, you're the leader. You're not the de facto leader. No, you are the leader. You need to lead. You need to be upset. You need to be upset at yourself. That's the way I feel that this all went down. It's like, no, man, you got to do it. You got to stop talking about it, and you have to actually do it. And I think that's exactly what happened. I think the switch went off. I think he got a little angry, and he should. And he probably just said, you know what? I'm going to go out and I'm going to actually do it. He just looks so much better over the last couple of weeks. So what does that mean for the rest of the year? Win or lose, I think people are very, very satisfied. And I know there's no moral victories, but they will be very, very satisfied if Trevor Lawrence down the stretch continues to play the way he's been playing. If he continues to play the way he's been playing, I guarantee you by the end of the year, people will start saying he's a top 10 quarterback. He's not going to be in the top 5, but he'll be somewhere between 6 and 10 if he continues to play the way he's played the last couple of weeks, because the last couple of weeks, he has been lights out, okay? He has been absolutely lights out. If he can get a win, 2 against Tennessee, win 1 or 2 games that they're not supposed to, I think it'll help. So what turned it around for Trevor? We're going to talk about that, and we're also going to discuss long-term, where do I think he is and what do I think he's going to be. I gave you a hint of it a little while ago. We'll do all of that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored by Tommy John. Getting stuck in Black Friday crowds, super uncomfortable? Shopping Tommy John's Black Friday sale from your couch, super duper comfortable. When you can give your loved ones Tommy John, they're that much more comfortable, so they can do everything better. You're talking about underwear. You're talking about undergear, pajamas. Tommy John's has it all. Shop Tommy John's Black Friday sale right now and give the gift of comfort to everyone on your list, including yourself, with brand new Tommy John underwear, loungewear, and pajamas. That's why Tommy John doesn't have customers. They have fanatics, because with over 18 million pairs sold, giving Tommy John's has become a holiday tradition. 97% of women and men love getting a gift from Tommy John. Celebrate softness season with the gift of Tommy John underwear, loungewear, and pajamas. Every gift is backed by Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free. Well, you know what? They weren't free to me because they are I wear Tommy John underwear, and they are the absolute best underwear that I have ever worn. Shop Tommy John's Black Friday sale going on right now and get 30% off site-wide at TommyJohn.com/locked on. 30% off everything now at TommyJohn.com/locked on. TommyJohn.com/locked on. See site for details. We thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars as we continue to take inventory of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're stopping right now with the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. A lot of people have been telling me they've been looking forward to this episode. Will Trevor have some more moments that are head-scratching moments? Absolutely. Right now, when I'm doing this show, he has 13 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He is that statistically, he is light years ahead of where he was last year. Light years. Statistically and just from just a realistic point of view, watching the games and not just looking at the box score, the last 2 weeks have been absolutely tremendous. So he's had games, not only the last two, but he had a game against the Colts earlier in the year and a game against the Chargers. Those 4 games, he was absolutely exceptional. Now, where it changed for me, the perception is when they got down to the Raiders 17-0. They were out there floating in the wind, and they were running the ball really, really well. And you saw Trevor not try to get everything back in one play. I think the maturity that came from him not getting down, the team not getting down, there's no way on earth, and that was the week following I heard this little dust-up happen, but there was no way on earth that they would have come back and won that game if guys did not believe in him, and if he didn't display a certain sort of leadership, and if he didn't look like he was in full command and full charge of everything that was going on. So as I watched that transpire, even before I knew that they were going to win the game, the way that they were playing, I said, something's going on here. This is one of those critical moments. This will either be the game that you can put up and say, this is what you can be or what you can do, regardless if they had won, or it was going to be the seminal moment for them where they got off the highway and took the right highway and they were on their way to success. So far, it appears, at least as far as Trevor is concerned, that's exactly what happened. Now, last week against the Chiefs when they lost, we don't look for moral victories, but I think the victory in this loss was the fact that they lost and it wasn't his fault. And no one even thought about blaming him for the loss, because in that game, what you saw him competing at a high level on the other side of the field from Patrick Mahomes. He competed at a high level last year against Joe Burrow. He competed at a high level this year when he played Justin Herbert. He competed at a high level last year when he went head-to-head with Josh Allen. The thing that you like is every time he's playing against one of those guys, it seems like he plays and puts his best foot forward and matches that great quarterback from the other side of the field. So with that, along with the fact that it seems like he's sort of coming around the last couple of weeks and learning, it's a difference between being the reason your team wins and then being the reason why they lose a game, right? And the other day when they lost to Kansas City, it wasn't his fault. And I think that's something that they need, that they can build on, because early in the year, there were times when I could point right to him, and even Trayvon Walker, I could point right to him and say, this is the play that lost the game, even though that if you play better, you don't end up in those situations. But that's football. There's certain things you just can't do. See, when you make a mistake early, you have time to overcome it. When you make a mistake in the fourth quarter, you don't have time to, I guess call it repent or overcome that mistake, because time's going to run out. Time is not on your side in the fourth quarter. So you can't make mistakes at that point. He has done a very good job the last couple of weeks that have left me optimistic. I do believe that Trevor Lawrence still does have a chance to hit that elite status, right? But it's not going to be about the physical stuff. It's going to be about the mental stuff. I think one of the things that's going to allow him to improve is that they keep getting more weapons on offense. They're going to add Calvin Ridley next year if he comes back off of suspension, as everyone expects him to. I think he needs a big weapon at tight end and maybe even another young receiver to put in their rotation. I think as the weapons around him improves and he spends more time with Press Taylor and Doug Peterson, and he has that continuity, and he knows that they're not going to change. This is the staff. This is who we're working on. This is who we're working with. And he continues to spend that time with Mike McCoy, and he continues to stay on the same page and have the continuity that is needed for him to be a successful quarterback. I think at some point, if he plays this way, that there is a chance that he will reach that elite status, because I do think he's smart. I do think he has a high IQ. I do think he has a very good arm. I think he's athletic. He's learning how to run, when to run and when not to run. I think the sky's the limit. And I know usually I go segment 1 or segment 3 for Blue Sky or for Silver Lining. I'm giving it to you now, man. I'm giving it to you right now. So what are we going to see him do in the last 7 weeks that's going to give us confidence as he heads to the off season? What do we need to see the last 7 weeks? Well, I'll tell you, we'll start with the Baltimore Ravens, and I'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. To let you know about BetOnline, our today's show is sponsored by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer, esports, we've got it all covered at betonline.net. The Nets started out like gangbusters, and then all of a sudden, the last couple of games, they've gotten blown out. I wonder when Kyrie's coming back. We'll have to see, and BetOnline will probably have all that information for you. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more, because BetOnline is where the game starts. We thank you for starting here with us on Locked On Jaguars, making us your first listen. For your second listen, make sure you tune in to Locked On Sports Today. I was actually featured on Locked On Sports Today the other day, and you'll enjoy it because it's all about the local experts from around the country. And what happens is they give you all of the biggest stories, and you get all of the biggest stories from a local perspective, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. For the next 7 games, what we need to see Trevor Lawrence do is outduel these superstar quarterbacks that he's going to have a chance to play. I know he got Lamar Jackson coming up. He probably has, I know they have Dak Prescott. He'll see Ryan Tannehill. He got to outplay Ryan Tannehill. And then Davis Mills, you got to outplay Davis Mills. You can't lose to the Texans again. So they'll play Detroit also, and you got to get him to that kid up there, Jared Goff. Outplay the other quarterbacks on the other team. Whenever you play a Lamar Jackson, stand tall. When you have that big game in Dallas that's going to be filled to the rafters, the Cowboys trying to make a run in the playoffs, just be the best player on the field. You want to see him start to do that in those games, right? You want to see him have a fine line between being greedy, being cognizant of down and distance, not making terrible throws. Those are the things you want to see from Trevor Lawrence down the stretch. Now, it's going to help, as I mentioned, because I think they're going to improve his weapons. When you look around at the other quarterbacks, especially the really, really good quarterbacks in the league, even the veteran quarterbacks like Tom Brady, they have these weapons. They have guys that you can just throw the ball up and they're going to get it. They have catch radius guys. They have people that are going to fight one-on-one for balls. The balls don't have to be perfect. It's almost with Trevor Lawrence, balls have to be perfect because his receivers, while they're adequate, they aren't the upper level of guys. You know, you don't see Mike Williams and Evans down, Mike Evans and T. Higgins, of course, and Jamar Chase and Stephon Diggs and that Davis kid they got up there in Buffalo. These quarterbacks have something that he doesn't. So I'm not going to totally make an excuse for him and say that it's all about the receivers. But it definitely, if you're going to try to do an apples to apples comparison with these other quarterbacks, they have something that he does not have. They have elite play at wide receiver. That will improve with the addition of Calvin Ridley. It'll also improve with the fact that Travis Etienne is such a good running back, but it's going to improve also if they get a tight end, a really, really good tight end. No disrespect to Evan Ingram, but I mean, an upgraded tight end is probably going to have to be a young guy. But to finally find that one guy that, you know, we talk about Lamar Jackson, he has one. He has a great tight end. So it's those types of players. As the talent level increases and improves, I think it'll help him out. So I'm gonna give you an example of a guy who folks were very critical of. Two guys that folks were very critical of, who all of a sudden critics are gone now because now they have a lot of talent. One is Jalen Hurts. Remember all the Jalen Hurts can't throw? Okay, you go get him A.J. Brown to go along with Smith, and he has Dallas Goedert. Now Jalen Hurts is one of the top 5 quarterbacks or 6 or 7 quarterbacks statistically in the NFL, and his team's only lost 1 game. When you look at Tua Tagovailoa, he wasn't the answer. A lot of people thought he wasn't the answer, right? So you go get Tyreek Hill a year after you draft Jalen Waddle, and you got a big, tall tight end down there also. What happened? Now the kid is an MVP candidate, and Miami looks like they're poised to make a run. And statistically, he is wearing people out, especially, you know, once he came back from that concussion, he's getting it done now. You can't tell me that Aaron Rodgers this year doesn't look a little bit different because he lost Devontae Adams, and then he had another guy get hurt, and they're basically playing with a bunch of young kids. Now it's looking better because the Watson kid is starting to come around a little bit. But the point is weapons do matter. They matter when you're trying to evaluate quarterbacks. We just gave you examples of guys who people didn't think were very good, and you added talent, and now they're in the running for the MVP. And then a guy who's won the MVP like 3 or 4 times, you take his talent away, and now he looks like sometimes he's lost. Talent does matter. And adding talent at wide receiver and size and athleticism at tight end is going to matter for Trevor Lawrence. So let's put it all in a nutshell. The next 7 games, these guys need to be trying to win as much as possible, but they also need to understand that they're auditioning throughout this entire roster. Trevor is not auditioning. Trevor Lawrence is he's trying to put a stamp and a standard on what we should expect from him. But everybody else at all of these other groups, especially guys that have 1 year left on their contract or that are in a 5th-year option, or what, they need to prove that they are a part of what's going to be happening here, because Shad probably is still sitting there. You know, this is Doug Peterson's first year. So they're still in that, hey, we need to build this thing correctly. They're still in that phase. We got away from it when they were 2-1 because everybody was thinking, okay, they're already built, they're ready to go now. No, we've seen that because they're 3-7, we've seen that there's a lot more building to do. So when you're still in that mindset that you're building, you're taking inventory of your ingredients to see what you have. And these guys have to actually understand that and play that way down the stretch. No postcast this weekend, obviously, because there's no game, but we will be right back live and at it on a Monday here on Locked On Jaguars. And take inventory, man. Listen to the entire series from this week and come up with, in fact, I want you to hit me up on social media at Shop Talking Wig, #inventory, right? Tell me who you want to see prove that they belong the rest of this year, and then tell me what you think the biggest need for the team is moving forward. I'll be listening and checking you guys out, and I'll probably respond to some of those on Monday on our Monday show. Until then, man, y'all have a nice weekend. Enjoy the fall weather as we get ready for Turkey Day next week, Thanksgiving, where we all get together and eat ourselves into submission. And how long those leftovers last? How many days? We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that Wednesday. We're gonna talk about the day before Thanksgiving. I'm gonna ask y'all what's the checkout date on leftovers. But until then, man, y'all take care of each other. Have a nice weekend, and we'll see you Monday here on Locked On Jaguars.